The rain was soft that night. Not heavy enough to drown the city lights, but just enough to blur them into golden rivers flowing across the windshield of every passing car. In a quiet corner of Manhattan, a small café glowed warm against the chill of October. Inside, a young woman sat by the window, tracing circles on her coffee cup, the scent of roasted beans mingling with her nervous heartbeat. Her name was Emma Carter. 27, waitress, dreamer, and the kind of girl who found beauty in things most people ignored. The sound of laughter between bus stops, the smell of rain on asphalt, the old man who played jazz outside the subway. Life hadn't given her much, but she had learned to make something gentle out of almost nothing. Her best friend, Lucy, had set her up on a blind date. "He's nice," Lucy had promised. "Not rich, but sweet. You said you wanted real, right? No more guys who think you're a project to fix." Emma had laughed, but her chest had tightened a little. Real. That's all she'd ever wanted. Someone honest, someone who didn't look at her and see limits. At 7:01, the bell over the cafe door chimed. A tall man stepped in, shaking rain from his hair. He wasn't movie star handsome, but something about him was quietly magnetic. Sharp eyes, strong hands, and a calm that felt rare. He wore a simple gray coat and carried himself like someone who had lived many lives. "Emma?" he asked. She looked up and smiled nervously. "Hi, you must be Daniel." He nodded. "Sorry I'm late. I took the subway. Seems every line was running slow tonight." "That's okay," she said, motioning to the seat across from her. "I like people who take the subway. Keeps you humble." He smiled. Not out of politeness, but as if he'd really meant it. And for the first time in weeks, Emma felt herself relax. Their conversation started simple. Movies, favorite foods, little details about life. She told him about the cafe, how she'd been working there since college. He told her he was, between things, doing odd jobs, helping a friend with a small tech startup. He didn't brag or impress, he just listened. Really listened. Emma found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone. How she sometimes stayed after closing just to watch the city sleep from the cafe window. How she was saving every tip to move out of her tiny apartment. How she'd once dreamed of being a writer but now just wrote thoughts in the margins of old receipts. Daniel's eyes softened. "You write. Just little things," she shrugged. "Nothing worth reading." He leaned forward slightly. "Everything worth feeling is worth reading." It wasn't just what he said. It was the way he said it, quietly, as if he meant it more than she did. When they left the cafe, the rain had stopped, and the night air smelled of wet pavement and promise. He walked her home, even though she insisted she could take the bus. They didn't talk much, just walked, side by side, their silence saying everything words couldn't. When they reached her building, she turned to him. "I had a good time," she said, cheeks warm. "Me too," he said. Then, after a pause, "Can I see you again?" Her smile was small but real. "You can try." The days that followed were a blur of coffee dates, park walks, laughter under neon lights. Emma couldn't explain it. Daniel wasn't like the others. He never tried to impress her, never bragged, never made her feel small. He'd show up with little things. Her favorite pastries, a secondhand book she'd once mentioned loving, a note that simply said, "You make ordinary days feel rare." Sometimes, though, she caught glimpses of something in him. A quiet weight behind his eyes, a reflex to hide certain details when she asked too much. He never spoke about his family, never mentioned where he lived, and always paid in cash. Once, while they were walking through Central Park, she teased him. "You're either in witness protection or secretly rich." He laughed, but there was something in his laugh, a flicker, like a secret struggling not to surface. "If I were rich, you'd know," he said softly. But she didn't, and that's what made her love him. Love crept in quietly, in the way he remembered her coffee order, in how he walked her home no matter how late it was, in how he listened when she spoke of her dreams like they mattered. Then one evening, a strange tension crept in. Daniel seemed distracted. They were sitting by the river, watching the city lights ripple on the water, when he finally said, "Emma, there's something I should tell you." Her heart skipped. "What's wrong?" He hesitated. "I might have to go away for a while. Work stuff." "Oh, she said softly, trying to hide her disappointment. Where? Not far. Just complicated. He looked at her then. The kind of look that says everything you're too afraid to put into words. Will you still be here when I come back? She smiled through the ache in her chest. I've waited for buses longer than this city's loved me. I can wait for you. He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, you don't know what that means to me. The next morning, Daniel was gone. No message, no call, no trace. Emma told herself not to panic. Maybe he'd lost his phone, maybe he was busy. But as days turned to weeks, silence filled the spaces where his voice used to be. Lucy told her to forget him. Men like that don't disappear for nothing. He probably lied, but Emma couldn't. Something in her heart refused to believe he'd just vanished. She still visited the cafe where they met, still looked up when the doorbell chimed, still half expected to see him standing there, smiling that quiet smile. 2 months later, fate decided to play its hand. Emma was working the morning shift when a man in a tailored suit walked in, tall, confident, surrounded by assistants. Everyone turned to stare. He moved with the kind of authority that made the air around him different. Good morning, Mr. Hart, one of the assistants said. Your meeting with the investors is in an hour. Emma froze. Hart, Daniel Hart. She looked up. He was standing just a few feet away, his eyes finding hers across the cafe. The world fell silent. He looked the same, and yet different. The same quiet strength, but now wrapped in luxury, a man whose every move screamed power. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. Emma, he said softly, voice trembling just enough to betray the storm inside him. You, she whispered, words barely forming. You lied. He took a step forward. Let me explain. No, she said, stepping back. You said you were between jobs. That you took the subway. I did, he said. Because I wanted you to know me before you knew my name. Her throat tightened. You could have told me. I couldn't, he said. Every woman I met before you wanted what I had, not who I was. I needed someone real, and then I met you. Tears burned her eyes. So you made me fall for a lie. No, he said quietly. I made you fall for the truth, just without the label. Days passed again, filled with silence. Daniel tried reaching out. Calls, letters, flowers, but Emma didn't answer. She wasn't angry anymore, just broken. She missed the man who took the subway with her, not the CEO who owned a skyline. But one night, she came home to find an envelope under her door. Inside was a small notebook, the same one she'd once written her thoughts in on cafe napkins. On the first page, in Daniel's handwriting, were the words, You said every ordinary thing is worth feeling. You made me believe every extraordinary thing is worth earning. Below it was a plain ticket. She almost didn't go. But love, even wounded, has a strange pull. When she arrived at the airport lounge, he was waiting. No suit this time, just jeans, a soft smile, and a bouquet of wildflowers. I didn't come to impress you, he said. I came to start over. As Daniel, the man who took the subway. The man who fell for a girl who believed kindness still matters. Emma looked at him for a long moment. And if I can't trust you again, then I'll spend the rest of my life earning it, he said simply. And in that moment, she knew, love wasn't about perfection. It was about choice. The choice to believe, even when you're scared. She stepped closer. Then start by walking me home again. He smiled. The same quiet smile from the cafe. Always. Months later, the city lights shimmered outside her window again. Emma's cafe was busier than ever, thanks to a mysterious investor who refused to take credit. She still worked there every morning, apron on, coffee brewing, the bell chiming with every news story waiting to happen. Sometimes, Daniel would slip in quietly, order her favorite coffee, and sit by the window, just like the first night. He still wore that same gray coat sometimes, just to remind them both where they began. And when customers whispered about the millionaire who dated the waitress, Emma would only smile and say, he wasn't a millionaire when I met him. He was just a man who took the subway. The rain fell again one night, just like the beginning, soft, golden, full of memory. Daniel and Emma stood by the same cafe window, fingers intertwined. She looked up at him and whispered, "You know, I never really cared who you were." He kissed her forehead. "I know. That's why I wanted to be yours." And as the city blurred into light, they both realized, sometimes, love hides behind the simplest disguise, waiting for someone brave enough to see past the surface. Because in the end, it was never about rich or poor, power or pride. It was about a girl who believed in real things and a man who wanted to be real again. And together, they made the ordinary feel extraordinary. If you felt this story, don't forget to subscribe for more heart-touching love tales, where real hearts find their way home, even in a city full of masks.